Ta-da-da!
Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome back to the High Heels Happy Hour.
Welcome.
I'm Christina,
And I'm Ingrid.
and this is the podcast where we talk about anything that we want to talk about. But we talk
Yes.
about lifestyle, self-development, self-improvement, all the things, style, lifestyle, all the things that makes life fun and spicy and worth living.
A little bit of everything.
Yes, that's right. And that's the fun thing about having a podcast. You can talk about anything you want.
Yes.
Yes. So today we're going to dive into, or it's going to be the fast guide to fasting, because fasting is a big subject. So we'll call it fast guide. So we're going to touch on it. We'll just clarify a few things. But before we do that, how was your week? I think you need to move a little closer.
I think it's close.
I think so.
I am all the way close to you.
Oh, okay. How was your week?
Week was good. It was busy. I mean, I don't think it's ever not busy.
Yeah.
So we had the air show. So I
Yes, we had
volunteered.
an air show here in Vero Beach.
Super fun. They come
So
every
fun.
2 years.
It's the Blue Angels. If you guys don't know what the Blue Angels are, you need to look them up.
Yeah,
It's so fun.
Pretty amazing the things that they do with those jets.
Yes.
It's
they fly so close.
It makes me dizzy. All the
Yeah.
spins. I'm like, how do you get out of there?
Yeah.
But it was really
Very
good.
cool.
This is I don't know if it's the first year, but they had a good amount of females. There's two
Female pilots?
female pilots. They had
Wow.
2 female pilots. One of them was a number 4. They're all numbered.
Uh-huh.
They have their name on it, which is really cool.
Uh-huh.
And then they have another female pilot that flies one of the other planes, like super badass.
Huh. Because we were just saying that the G-force or whatever, in order to go that fast up and down, it must be super physical.
Very.
Huh.
So,
cool. Badass.
Yeah, yes. When they came out, I was like, those are females.
Fun.
So, and they had to stay fit too. So fasting and fit and flying.
Fasting, flying. It's all F words today. Not that F word you're all thinking about. No, we're not going to say that one.
Even the force is F. So.
Yes.
How about you?
It was good. It wasn't crazy work-wise. It was good, but we started practice driving with our daughter Bella. So we were out. We've done a little bit in the neighborhood, but we were out on regular roads, and that's she's doing. She was doing well. She tried to park in like Publix parking lot too. She did a good job. So, but it's things that you're taking for granted, and I don't remember from last time when we drove with our son, but things like green light, and then you have green light with the arrow, and some turning lanes have the arrow and some don't, and the difference there was kind of like, okay, of course that's not maybe obvious when you're starting to drive. She's like, but it's green. Yeah, but it's a circle green, not an arrow green, which means they have the lead or the
right away. Sometimes you have to yield too.
Yeah, so it's a lot of those, but it's
but in Florida people don't listen anyway, so she has to be careful.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's a rite of passage, so that's good.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm a little. She's not even mine, but I'm like, oh, she's driving already.
She will be. Yeah, I think she's going to be a good driver. She just has that. She wants to do things well. I said, well, there's an art to driving, and there's a lot of bad drivers out there. So you should always make a point out of taking pride in your driving. She's like, yes.
I love it.
So, what's your hack?
So, surprisingly, it's going to be a food hack. So, we did donut holes at the house with just a few ingredients, including Greek yogurt. I did not realize how many things you can do.
I know, with Greek yogurt.
Yes.
I know.
It's like you always had a pantry full of, flour and sugar. Now
Mhm.
it's you gotta have fridge of Greek yogurt and like honey or
Cottage
something.
cheese.
And cottage cheese. I love cottage cheese.
Me too.
I didn't know.
Do now. But I only like Daisies.
Oh,
I don't like the other ones.
I don't have a
Yeah.
I don't have a preference.
I'm a little bit of a cottage cheese connoisseur.
Yes, she's a little picky on her
Okay,
cottage cheese.
I want to hear about these
So
donut
donut
holes.
holes is Greek yogurt,
Uh-huh.
rising flour.
What flour?
Rising.
Oh, like regular self-rising flour?
Self-rising
Uh-huh.
flour. Butter, cinnamon.
Okay.
And then you top them off with like cinnamon brown sugar. The air fryer.
In the air fryer. I heard you could do it with almond flour too if you want to stay gluten-free.
You can, however, Sebastian's allergic to almonds.
Oh, that's right. So that won't work. You could do cassava flour.
Okay.
Just gluten-free.
So you have self-rising and cassava. Cassava?
Cassava. Yeah.
Cassava.
There's a lot of different. You can have sorghum flour, cassava flour, chickpea flour. There's a lot of different.
I just learned the hack with any flour.
Okay.
So now I'm learning.
So now we can try
I have a lot of flours.
Huh. Oh, in the air fryer. I want to try that. Anything that goes in the air fryer, I like.
And the fact that you almost didn't get one.
Yes. That is
so. Just if
the
you
irony
if you don't
of
remember,
yeah,
I had let Christina borrow my air fryer. She's like, I don't like this.
I don't think that's going to be anything for me. Yes, I use my air fryer every day.
And she got one twice as big as mine.
I got the biggest one you could find.
And I thought I was just teasing her. I said, just try the small one. That way you have the ability to use it. And she was like, this is, I don't even know why you have this. And not only did she buy one, she bought the biggest one. So,
yeah. So people can change. That's what we want to. So my, I don't have a hack, but I have a hint today. So a lot of the things that we are talking about in this podcast, nutrition and health and style and beauty and all that, are things that I do for a living. I'm not a nutritionist, but I do, as you probably have understood by now, love healthy cooking. And I am a fitness instructor. And I teach people about style. So I am have over, as you know, Ingrid, over a longer period of time, thought about how to combine all these things into one. And the podcast is one, but then also how do I kind of teach more on an ongoing basis that's not just sitting in a studio like this or in a closet, we should say.
Studio closet.
Studio sounds better. So, and I have a physical style club here in Vero, which Ingrid is a part of, that meet every month. And the style club is also asked about, we want to learn about how you make your salads or dressings and stuff that I feed them when we get together. So I thought, how can I combine all these things? And I am thinking of doing a membership club, and online, so it could be anywhere in the world. But I'm still working out the ideas. It seems like from initial research and questionnaires, it seems like it's a really good idea. But I want to get more feedback in order to know how to do the best and also if it's really of interest. So I have a little questionnaire. It takes about 1 minute to fill out, and the link is in the show notes. I would love for all you listeners to go and just fill out the little questionnaire. And I'm not going to bombard you with the information afterwards, but it's just kind of to see interest levels. And
fair enough.
Yeah. But I think it could be a really fun. I know I'm going to have so much fun creating content for this membership club because it's all the things that I really love. And I can, dig a little deeper.
I love it. And interesting enough, I saw on TikTok yesterday or Instagram on how they wish it's a false sense of food recipes when it comes to post. Because they have these really like cool ASMR videos of food,
Uh-huh.
and they say, "Oh, you crack an egg," and everything's done so fast forward.
Yeah.
So the concept for children to understand how food is actually cooked,
Oh,
it's like so
oh.
fast. So
Oh. Yeah, mine
you,
won't be fast. They will be unedited. This is how we do it.
but that's a good way to
Yeah.
have that up on it because people have a false. Well, on TikTok it was like 30 seconds. No, honey, no, it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that was
Yeah.
a post. Someone
Okay.
had taken the time
Hmm.
to do this post and say, "Look, this is
How it actually, yeah.
again with
Yeah.
social what actual social media does. It's
Yeah.
created this huge microwave society,
Yep.
and
Yep.
the expectations of people are bizarre."
And the same thing with fitness. I see, because I
Mm.
follow a lot of fitness influencers, but you see the workouts, and it all looks really easy.
Mhm.
Some of that, but so I think for me, form is so important when it comes to fitness, and especially since we talk a lot about resistant training and stuff, which sound is all good, and you can do it at home, but you gotta have good form. Otherwise, you might hurt yourself more than you actually improve. So that's I'm just going to teach some basic things on how good things you can do fitness hacks you can do at home,
I love it.
workouts, and really show how it's done and what to think about. So that's one of the best compliments I ever got since I teach a weightlifting class. Um, but it's fast pace, so it's hard to I can't give personal instructions
Mhm.
because there's a lot of people there and it's just me. So but the best compliment I ever got from anyone taking my class was, you know what, you could be blind and take this class because your instructions are so good I don't have to see myself in the mirror. I'm like, that is the nicest thing, the best thing
You have to write
anyone
that
has ever.
down.
Yeah. Well, I've now recorded it
Oh, that's right. Now it's
for the
on.
world and
Yes.
the rest of
Love
my
it.
life to know. So yeah, that is my. I'm super excited working on this little membership thing and how to add value. So please, please, please take the quiz. That is my hack for today. Hint,
Hint.
hint, hack, hint.
Yes. I love it.
So we are going to talk about fasting. And it is, as I said in the beginning, it is a big subject. There's a lot of research and there's a lot of opinions out there. And we're not going to persuade you in any way,
Mhm.
but I think it's an interesting concept and it's something if you listen to this podcast, you know that I've been doing it for a long time and you did it for a while too. Um, and there are definitely some benefits to keep in mind. But we're going to touch on because there's a lot of words and what do you call it?
Acronyms.
Yeah, being thrown out there
Mhm.
that could be hard to understand and really what it is. Is it, starving yourself? So we figured, you know what? It is a hot topic. It's part of life. So let's discuss it. So we're going to break down the fast guide to fasting. And it's so important. I'm going to put my glasses on that are not clean. I just noticed, but oh well.
Mm.
So let's just start again. We're not doctors
Mm-mm.
and or nutritionists, so we're just going to kind of give you information that we have gained from self experimentation and research out there. So there are
Oh.
different types of fasting, and anyone who's done any kind of spiritual uh, exploration knows that fasting is something that all
Cleanses the
religions kind of
soul.
have in some form. You have Ramadan and you have Lent, which is not a fast, but you abstain from something. And yeah, it seems to be something that, and in the Bible, they
Mhm.
fasted for a long time. It is something that's been around forever, for as long as we
A
know,
lot longer than we've been alive.
and a lot. But there are different types. So let's just break down the kind of the most common terms. So prolonged fasting. That is when you go above 24, 36 hours. So you go for days. You do like a 7-day water fast or 5-day water fast or something like that. That is a prolonged fasting. I'm not going to touch on that today because
It's
that's a little
long.
more hardcore. The longest I've done is 36 hours, which was not bad, but that is not what we're going to talk about today mostly. Then you have intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, time restricted fasting, time restricted eating. That is the one also known as IF. And that's the one we're going to be touching on or talking about today because that's the one that kind of is mostly in the media right now. And it's the easiest one to do for everyone. It's the most versatile and doable one, I
Mhm.
think. And within time restricted eating, there are things like OMAD, which means 1 meal a day. But OMAD is one of those terms that is thrown around. Then you have ADF, which is alternate day fasting. So you fast one day, don't eat one day, eat the next day. Don't eat one day, eat the next day. And then you have methods like the 5-2. Have you heard of that?
No?
It was super big in Sweden a couple years back. Everyone was doing the 5-2 diet. I hated that one.
You
It's like
eat for
5 days a week you eat regular, 2 days a week you have very calorie restricted eating. So it's like 500 calories for a woman, maybe 800 for a man. Those 5
that's like,
days,
well, so Swedish people do
they
eat 5 days and don't eat 2. In
but not
America,
consecutive. Yeah.
and then in America, we eat really good healthy for 5, and we
No, most people do not eat good and healthy for 5.
well, usually
No.
they talk about eating healthy and then cheat days, which is
Yeah, but
they make up for the 5 days they
yeah,
had
but this
healthy.
is not a cheat. This is like 500 calories. That is not much.
Uh,
The 2 days you get 500 calories. But anyway, we're not going to touch on that one much either because I thought it was actually harder to eat 500 calories in one day than not eat at all. So
huh.
I personally did not like
Okay.
it, but it is one that is out there still. All right. So the overarching idea about fasting and why it really spoke to me when I started doing intermittent fasting was giving your body digestive rest, meaning not constantly stuffing your face with food. We are not meant to be eating 24/7. And if you think about our ancestors, they ate with the circadian rhythm, which has become a really big thing now because there was no electric lights. So they had to wake up during sun hours, and that's when they ate. And then when it got dark, they went to bed and did not eat. They
Huh.
also hunted food during the day. Also, they didn't hunt 24/7 because there was no DoorDash. So they had to hunt the food when they could see the food. And they
Yeah,
went
makes sense.
prolonged periods of time with no eating because, um, yeah, they didn't have the availability of constant eating. So the idea with giving your body a digestive rest is really what brought me to intermittent fasting in the beginning. So it's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Just like your body needs rest, we need sleep, we need to rest from certain things. We can't work out all the time. You need to recover. We need recovery from food. And when you're constantly eating too, you're constantly your insulin levels because you're getting sugars and carbohydrates and other things in your insulin levels are rising. Your body's constantly have to work on digesting the
Mm.
food. So where other parts of your body like your brain and don't get as much attention, the stomach gets the attention. And that's why we can experience tiredness and brain fog and all that because guess what, you're working on digesting.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
So that whole
yeah.
idea to me was sounded very interesting. And there are things that happens in your body when you give it digestive rest. So we're going to go through some of those. But within the intermittent fasting, so what is a time restricted eating? How long do you go? Well, a good rule of thumb is to just have, or to start with, to have 12-hour digestive rest. That means 12 hours of not eating, which is, guess what? Part of that, you're sleeping.
Hmm.
So if you're sleeping for 8 hours, guess what? There's just 4 hours awake that you're not eating, which is not.
Not bad.
That is something all people should do at all times. It's just plain and simple makes sense. So 12 hours, meaning you go to bed at, say you stop eating at 8 at night, and then you go to bed, because you shouldn't eat right before you go to bed anyway, because it's not, again, digestive, giving your body digestive rest when you should be sleeping. Now the body has to work on all this food. So you go to sleep, say you stop eating at 8, and then you go to sleep maybe 9, 10, 11, and then you wake up, 6, 7, and then you can eat at 8. Don't have to stuff your face the first thing you do in the morning. So 8 to 8, that's not that hard, right?
No.
So 12 hours is a good kind of
I have to be better with that with the
start.
children.
Now, one thing to say there, children should not be fasting. They are growing. So, I mean, a little bit of digestive rest. Sure, they shouldn't be eating all the time. No one should. But children, and of course, you got to check with your doctor if you have some kind of
But for
condition.
us too.
Also, if you've done, a gastric bypass operation and you need to eat smaller meals throughout the day, stuff like that, you
There's
need
always
to check.
room
There's
for,
always room. And children that are growing should not fast.
Gotcha.
But we are not growing on height; we're growing on width.
I know.
So anyone who's growing width-wise can fast. But 12-hour eating, 12-hour fasting, and then you have another. Next step could be 14 hours of fasting, 10-hour eating window. A very common fasting length that seems to, and in research seems to have been very beneficial, is 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. So what does that look like? So you stop eating at 8 at night, and then you don't eat until lunch the following day. So you eat at noon the following day. So you wake up, go about your day, you kind of skip breakfast. Now, you can, of course, move that window. So if you say, I want to skip dinner instead, I love breakfast, then skip dinner. But it's kind of skipping that one. So 16-8 is a very common fasting length. It's the one that I do most of the time. I stop eating around 8, and then I start eating at noon. I just skip breakfast. It's not, that to me works great. I cannot skip dinner because that would not mess up my whole social life, and I would never have to eat with my family. And then you have, if you want to go a little more restrictive, then you have an 18-6. So 18 hours of fasting, 6 hours of eating. And that the more you push the window. So an OMAD, 1 meal a day, would be kind of 22 hours of fasting and 2 hours of eating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which I have done on occasion. And not loving that one either. But because I don't think you have time to go into. But we're going to talk about that when we talk about the pros and cons. So does that explain to you well, like the different versions and what they mean? I'm going to pretend like you don't know as much as you do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
And I think as you've done more 36. I mean, I still somewhat do some fasting, but it's not my go-to.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I do feel the difference when I do.
And a very important thing to say too is that intermittent fasting is not a diet per se.
Mm-mm.
It's an eating pattern. It's not a diet. You can do intermittent fasting and eat only McDonald's. Not that we recommend it, but it's not It is not a diet. It's not a keto. It's not
No, it's just
a
it's no.
carnivore. It's not a vegan. It is, you can do intermittent fasting on any type of diet. It is a pattern in how you eat. And it's also, I think, some people are religious about it, like you do it every day. It's a great tool, which I think is one of the
Yeah.
best things about it. You could throw it in here and there whenever you need to. You could do it some days of the week. You could, whatever works best for you. But I think that the fact of giving your body digestive rest so that it can work on repairing itself
Hmm.
is such a good overarching idea why fasting should be beneficial. So let's go into some of the pros because, and again, if you want to deep dive into any of these pros or cons, there's tons of research out there. I was just saying to Ingrid when I prepared this episode that, gosh, we could talk about this for weeks because there's so much out, and there's so many that are pro and so many that are con uh, intermittent fasting. And but I'm just going from it from my perspective and kind of trying to be objective about it. But of
Hmm.
course, I have slight bias because I do it myself. And okay, so the pros, uh, well, there are quite a few. One pro that is comes with some hesitation is yes, there are some evidence of weight loss with intermittent fasting, and I'm saying weight loss and not, it could be weight loss and or fat loss
Yes.
because those two are not the same thing. So I mean, just to look from the mechanics of it, yes, by eating in a tighter time frame, you could be restricting calories because you might not have time to munch all day.
Hmm.
If you are limiting your time, unless you are stuffing your face within that window and just overeating, but by just practicality, by skipping one meal, yes, you might be restricting calories intake. Um, but when it comes to this reduced intake, it could also be, even has shown that even with the same amount of calories, if you restrict it into a certain window, it could still be beneficial.
Gotcha.
Now, I will say a lot of research also shown that it's not the best reason for intermittent fasting is not necessarily fat or weight loss. I think the other benefits outdo that because when we get to the cons, I will explain why. But as with any diet, if you're too restrictive, it can bite you in the butt.
Yes.
But I do think um, by restricting it into a certain window, you are more mindful of what you eat. Like when I go to break my fast, I'm just not going to nibble on, I'm going to make sure
Mm.
it's going to be worth breaking the fast. So you become more mindful in what you put in your mouth. Um, Another thing about uh, intermittent fasting is, and we touched on this before, is the metabolic um, systems we have. So the body likes to burn sugar because that's the easiest thing to burn.
Mm.
So when we constantly eat, mostly sugars and all the carbohydrates, turns into sugar in our body. That's great. And the body goes, yay, great. I'm going to burn that off. Or that's what I'm going to use for fuel. And then when we eat too much, that's when, and we don't use up the fuel, that's when it gets stored as fat. By not eating, there's no glucose, no sugar coming in to the body. So in order to stay alive, where does the body get the energy from?
From yourself.
From your fat stores.
Yes.
Yes. So while you're in the fasted state, the body learns to burn fat, which is not as easy for the body as sugar. So if the body could choose, it would choose sugar every day
Hmm.
because that's the quick fix. That's the
It's
easy
easy.
fix. But becoming a fat burner is so beneficial for you. When you could do both, it's like having a car that's both electricity and fuel.
Mm.
That so when you run out of fuel, it turns over to electricity and vice versa. So when you become a fat burner, you learn to burn both. Do you know why people get hangry? Like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna faint. I'm so hungry. I'm gonna faint. You're like, well, you ate 2 hours ago. It's not possible. It's because they can't burn fat. So anyone that has those hungry, uh, outbursts, which I used to have, it's because your body does not know how to burn fat, has not learned how to burn fat.
Huh.
When you do intermittent fasting and teach your body to be both fat burner and sugar burner, you don't get those extreme hunger sensations.
Interesting.
Yes. And that's one of the benefits, I think, because I used to be hangry.
Yeah, you were.
So, and now I'm not. And my husband used to say I was hangry. I'm not because I don't get those ravenous and feel like I'm going to faint moments. I don't because my body knows to tap into the stores. And again, thinking about it, if you're constantly eating, why would the body ever go to the storage unit?
Yeah, they know you're gonna give it some food.
Don't need to. There's
Yeah.
no need to go to the storage unit. You can just you just getting fuel all day long. Same thing if you have that car that's both electricity and fuel. If you're constantly fueling up the car, it never needs to kick into electricity, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's also one of the things when I learned about intermittent fasting, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Okay, so that's weight loss, yes, but it's not a yes. If you don't eat, you're going to lose weight, but it's not. It's some mechanics of intermittent fasting is yes, you can learn to burn fat more easily, and yes, by restricting your eating, you will eat less. More importantly, number two, pros of intermittent fasting, it reduces inflammation in your body. So, studies have shown that intermittent fasting can reduce oxidative damage and inflammation. Uh, and why that happens, and then of course there's tons of research and studies on it, but it is again, it's how your body is not constantly getting fuel and sugar. It needs to self-clean. There is something called autophagy, which is cell cleaning of the body. It's when the cells do some self-repair. It's called autophagy. Now, exercise will deepen the autophagy too, but that's when a lot of the cell damage because the body really wants to self-heal. It's one of those
Well, it's made to
yes,
self-heal.
but if you're constantly feeding it, it doesn't have time to self-heal because it's constantly dealing with food. So decreasing inflammation is a super important aspect because so much in your body, so much harm of your health is due to constant inflammations in your body. So, and you can get into now. There are a lot of talks about, well, when does autophagy kick in? They don't necessarily know that autophagy is self-cleaning, but if you do some intermittent fasting and you also exercise, you're definitely helping that self-cleaning of the body and to reduce oxidative damage, which really is something we all need to be more. Did I steal? No, we have the same. Okay. We all need to be more aware of. Another pro to this is better gut health. And they more and more see the link between the gut and the rest of your overall health. It all starts in the gut.
The center of the body.
Yes. And up until now, I think though, I mean, who was the not Aristoteles? It was one of the who's the modern medicine, can't remember his name. Anyway,
Hmm.
he said all things start in the gut. And then I guess medicine forgot that for many years. But recently, there's been a lot of studies on the microbiome, which is the bacterial flora
Yes.
in your body, in your gut, and how it links to everything, like your skin, your. And they say that Alzheimer's is like a diabetes of the gut. It's
Huh.
such a strong link between gut health and dementia and gut health and you name
Yeah, I
it.
mean,
Insert.
yeah, I can see that.
Yes. So, again, if you're constantly feeding the body food and maybe not the best bacteria, the microbiome, the gut microbiome, which is kind of your flora of bacteria in the gut, never has time to reset.
Hmm.
But by not eating and by giving it digestive rest, it has time to reset itself. And it can also increase the good bacteria in your gut, which is super important because who wants a bad gut health?
Yeah.
That is not fun. Uh, so, this is one of my favorites too. Better concentration and increased
Mm.
mental clarity. One of the things I love about um, intermittent fasting is that you have less brain fog when
Okay.
you're in a fasted state, because you've had those, we've eaten and then we just kind of collapse because we just get
Or food coma.
food coma. Exactly. So by and again, it has to do with the fact that you're not increasing your blood sugars, you're not
Mhm.
increasing insulin levels, all the blood doesn't need to go to the gut to take care of the food. It deals with your brain gets more and you just get better clarity of mind. So when I do podcasts or anything that I know that I need to think clearly, I like to do that in a fasted state. I
Huh.
don't like to eat before. I like to be mentally sharp. So that's why a lot of if I do important work stuff, not just scrolling through websites trying to find furniture, but if I need to write something, if I need to, I do it in the morning before I eat.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. Uh, yeah, and then they do attribute the better concentration and mental clarity to stable blood sugar levels and increased production of brain derivative neurotropic factor (BDNF),
That's
a
fancy.
protein associated with cognitive function.
Mm. So less
BDNF.
brain.
That's what we need a lot of. All right. So talking about sugar levels, another benefit is improved insulin sensitivity. Do you know that diabetes 2, not 1, because 1 is a genetic diabetes, but diabetes 2 is self-inflicted diabetes, so to speak. Okay.
Yes.
And that
Yes,
is
yes,
all
yes.
to do with increased insulin levels. So again, that is caused by constant
Which is
eating a lot
also
of sugar.
reversible.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And intermittent fasting can really help
Gotcha.
diabetes
Okay.
too by lowering insulin levels. And it just, speaks for itself. If you're not constantly eating and getting sugar in the body, the insulin doesn't need to spike. Because you want to, I mean, we're all going to get spikes, but we want to try to keep the spikes to a
Minimum.
minimum and
Mhm.
not constantly throughout the day. So yes, some studies suggest that IF can improve insulin sensitivity, which is beneficial for people at risk of type 2 diabetes. It may help regulate blood sugar levels and reduce the risk of insulin resistance. Because insulin resistance is when, you're getting so many spikes, the body doesn't react to
Mm.
insulin anymore. You're resistant to the insulin. Insulin's job is to transport sugar out of your blood. But if you're insulin resistant, it's not reacting, so then you constantly have sugar in your blood. And of course, these are all super medical explanations I'm giving you, and not at all, eh, you know, dumbed down to a level that I understand. because I am a hobby doctor. Yes, I'm just trying to explain it the way I've understood it, so it
Yes.
makes sense. All right. And then the cellular repair process that we talked about, the autophagy, that when the body really goes into cellular repair and can we have something called zombie cells. There is a more scientific name for it. I can't remember. But the zombie cells are like dead cells. They're not really doing anything, but they're just hanging out.
It takes space.
They take space and kind
Hmm.
of drag other things down with it. So, and cellular repair gets rid of those zombie cells. And that can also have an anti-aging effect.
Oh, I'll take 4.
Ooh, ding, ding, ding. Yes. Um, yes, and reduce the risk of certain diseases. Now, it can also regulate, intermittent fasting can also regulate hormone levels like insulin, which we talked about, but also ghrelin. Have you heard of ghrelin? And leptin. Those two are the hunger. So ghrelin is the one that
Is that
makes
why
us
you're
hungry.
what's it
Ghrelin. So ghrelin is the hunger, makes us ravishly hungry. That's a hormone.
Huh.
Leptin is the one that makes us feel satisfied and full. So when you have and with which we will hopefully discussing more soon, but with menopause and all that fun stuff, your ghrelin levels can increase and your leptin levels can decrease and all that. That's why you feel more hungry. A lot of women gain weight
Because they're
because
leptin.
the hormone levels are out of whack and you're constantly hungry and you eat more.
Anything else out of whack? Gosh.
Well. So by intermittent fasting can regulate so that the ghrelin
Huh.
and the leptin levels are more in balance and you're not as ravishly hungry. As I said, that's one of my things I like the most is that I have definitely toned down my ghrelin, not as ravishly hungry.
Huh.
Yep, and it can also help with improve menstruation because with the sex hormones, there's more research needed, and it's not exact science there, but it has shown that it can be beneficial if you have PCOS with
Okay.
intermittent fasting, because again, PCOS I think has to do with inflammations and all that. So yeah. Now this one I think is super interesting. They're all interesting, but this is important. Intermittent fasting may help in preventing cancer and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer, Parkinson,
Huh.
but cancers by starving the inflammations. And a lot of this is animal studies, but a lot of the animal studies they do kind of carries over. But of course, it's not, again, there's no exact this proof, but it has shown beneficial. That intermittent fasting can help protect against, fasting might have an anti-cancer effect by reducing inflammation and enhancing the immune system and slowing down the growth of cancer cells, which is, I think, also one of the reasons why I
Makes a lot of sense because usually when you get a body scan, they do a PET scan. I believe they do a little bit of glucose.
Yeah.
To see where the cancer cells, if they have any more in the body, because that's how they light up.
Yeah.
And then you should eat better when you are diagnosed with cancer.
Yes.
However,
which the doctors don't really talk about.
No.
I know because my mom, is going through cancer, and no one really talked about diet. It has shown that fasting, a little more prolonged fasting, but at least like maybe one day meal a day, has helped during chemotherapy too.
I mean,
The
possibly
effects
with all
of
the
chemotherapy has been
and
more,
stuff.
yeah. And then I think one of the best ways why I think intermittent fasting is a great tool to have in your toolbox is the simplicity and convenience. It's something you can just kind of set for yourself. You don't have to do the same thing every day. And also, as a woman, if you're having a cycle, you can shift it with your cycle. So when you're right before your period, when you have more progesterone, you might not want to fast as much, and then you can
I had to
regulate.
learn that.
Yeah, and then when you're and I'll also link, there are some really good fasting doctors and that have great information, and nutritionists out there. Mindy Peltz is a great one. I follow her. I'll link to their YouTube channels. She's has great information. She wrote the book Fasting Like a Girl,
Hmm.
where she talks a lot about the hormone regulation and how you can change your fast to work, because men and women, because we have different hormones, we can't fast exactly the same way. But the simplicity and convenience, it's whenever you want it. Another thing, I think, when I travel, fly, and even in the car, before it was always like a snacking or where we're going to have lunch. Often when I fly now, I just fast until I get, and then I don't have to worry about it.
Hmm.
Food. It says, oh, I don't like airport food. Well, then I'll just not eat, and then I'll eat when I get there. But you can really decide for your windows what works best, morning or night, or it's super flexible. And I think that's really one of the best things with it. That said, there are some cons. So, what are some things to keep in mind and things that are maybe not so good with intermittent fasting? Well, number one, you could have potential nutrient deficiencies, meaning, yes, if you eat less, you might not get all the nutrients you need. That's why it's so important that you know what you eat and make sure that you get all of it. Um, Number two, it can increase hunger in the beginning. Yes, if you're not used to not eating for a while, you could get really hangry at the beginning, but it does get better. Absolutely.
It
And
does. It
I
gets
have some
easier.
tips on how to kind of what to do and not to do, but don't jump in the deep end. Don't go from eating 24/7, or at least, 20 hours a day, to not
4.
eat for, yeah. So you got to sort of jump into it, or you got to walk into it
Yes.
easily. One easy way to, well, I'll do that later. I'm not now. I'm talking about the not so good benefit, or the
Cons.
cons. Uh, this one is an important one: potential muscle loss. And here we're talking about fat loss versus weight loss.
Mhm.
So yes, if you're, just like with any diet, if you're restricting your caloric intake, you're eating less, where is the body going to go? Yes, fat stores, but also you need protein. And where can the body find protein? In your muscles.
Muscles.
Muscles, in order to keep them alive, so to speak, requires a lot of energy. So when the body is starving or in starvation mode, it's going to say, oh, you know what, those expensive muscles, let's get rid of them. They take way too much energy.
Mhm.
So yes, you might lose weight, but it might be muscle mass, which you do not want to do. So it's super important that you make sure, don't if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes.
So make sure when you are fasting that you do a lot of resistant training, to make sure you indicate to the body, no, we need those muscles. We're going to hold on to those. You go to the fat store for energy, not to the muscle.
Yes. Go over there, please.
Yes. Now, social implications. Yes. Having a weird eating pattern can be a little bit socially
Mm.
awkward, especially if you're super strict. So if you're like, oh no, I only one meal a day, that might be hard in
Mm.
social. People might talk about you behind your back. But yes, but that's why I think, because it is so flexible, well, you just gotta find a way that works
Mhm.
for your life and your situation. But it can be a little socially awkward. And people sometimes take offense if they say, oh, I'm gonna serve you breakfast. And you're like, I don't eat breakfast. Are you sure you don't? You gotta eat breakfast. It's the most important. And it's like, no, I don't. And it's okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now another thing you can do is you might overeat during the feasting
Mm.
window, your eating window. Yes, that's a potential that you're so hungry that you're just eating everything and unhealthy foods. What you eat is still super important.
Yes.
I mean, it's when you eat, but also what you eat. So people that say, "Oh, I can eat anything I want within my feasting window or my eating window," no, that's not a good
No.
idea because then you kind of take it all the
Defeats the
benefits.
purpose.
Yes, yes. So yeah, just pay attention to that. And then we have disordered eating patterns.
Mhm.
If you have tendencies of having an eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, anything like that, I do not recommend fasting
Fasting.
because that can really trigger those unhealthy eating habits more. And all of a sudden, you kind of have an out.
Mhm.
What do you say? Yeah, you have
It just leads
a
to it, and with
reason why
yes.
you're not. Oh no, she's not anorexic. She's fasting, or
Mhm.
it's now you think it's socially acceptable reason to not eat.
Or you
But
just give yourself excuses, which is why when you
yeah,
were talking about the times of walking into a time,
hmm,
if you know, obviously people with eating disorders know it's unhealthy. So
yeah,
if they're trying to find something healthy to do
hmm,
consciously, if they know if they start eating at 8, then they start eating at 9,
yeah,
consciously it will help them understand the benefits. But
yes,
not definitely not someone that's going to jump into fasting.
no,
It's yeah, it's
it's yeah
not a good thing for them.
to yeah exactly. And of course, it's not suitable for everyone. It's as I said, if you've gone through any kind of procedure, not everyone, and of course, if you have type 1 diabetes where you need to be in
Mhm.
control of your insulin levels, it's probably not a good idea to be fasting.
Yeah.
So yes, you got to check with your healthcare professional before, or it might just be that it doesn't suit you. Or you might be super active, work out a lot. You're in some type of athlete who really needs
The fuel, it might the food.
fuel. But the whole 6 meals a day, I think everyone has decided that that was the worst advice of all times because that constant eating did no one
That was
any good.
out for a while. It was
Yeah,
really it's wild.
yeah, that's that is not what the body needs
No.
unless you're in a specific situation or you're coming back from disease or something and you
Mhm.
constantly need to fuel your body, but let's just say 99% of us do not need that.
No.
So a few tips on how to fast and things that people do wrong. um, Not eating means not eating. It also means not drinking sugary things. So yes, you could drink water, you could drink coffee, you could drink tea, anything. If it has calories or sugars,
You're
which is
breaking your
calorie,
fast.
you are breaking the fast. And is that so important? Yeah, because you're kind of taking away, we're trying to avoid the
Mm.
insulin spikes. So if you think, well, I'm only drinking, I'm not actually eating, so the stomach is still not digesting. No, insulin in the blood. We want to avoid those levels. So nothing with sugars, nothing with really shouldn't do anything with high fats either. That's why there's a difference between keto and intermittent fasting. You can do them together, but you can't drink butter coffee and think that you're still fasting. That's not. So if it has calories, if it has sugar, no, you
Mhm.
cannot drink. Doesn't matter if it's not chewable. Now, artificial sugars, I mean, technically, you're not spiking the insulin levels. You're not getting sugar spikes, but in some people, artificial sweeteners does spike
Mm.
insulin because the body thinks it's sugar. So unless you have a continuous glucose monitor, you won't know. So try to avoid it. But it really is so like oh, I'm just putting some coffee mate in my coffee. No, that won't work because it has sugar. Even if it's
Lots
just
of
sugar
sugar.
free, because it has
Fake sugar.
calorie. Yeah, and it has fake sugar that could. Um, Now they say stevia because it's a natural or
Mhm.
allulose. Yeah, maybe. I do a little bit of element salt in my coffee, and it has a little bit of stevia. Such a small amount, it doesn't really. But if I wanted to do a Puritan, I should stay away from that and just
Yeah.
drink it with salt. But it really should just avoid. You can drink water, just avoid it. You know.
Yeah. If you're gonna
Um,
do it, if you're gonna try it,
if you're
do
gonna
it
try it,
the
try
right
it.
way.
Try it the right way. Yeah. And then of course you can play around. Like
You can tweak
now
it.
I can drink Element and I know it's not spiking my insulin. I
Mhm.
know it works for me. But when in doubt, just stick to
Leave it out.
yes. When in doubt, leave it out. I like that. Okay, start slow. I mentioned this before.
Mhm.
Don't jump in the deep end. Start by pushing your breakfast window or breakfast time 1 hour per week. Like if you usually eat breakfast at 7, eat at 8, then eat it at 9, then eat it at 10. So constantly trying to push that window a little bit and see where you're comfortable. But a rule of thumb, you should try to give your body digestive rest for at least 12 hours. And I will say, even on my days when I'm not fasting, technically, because I have several of those a
Mhm.
week, 12 hours is like a minimum for me.
Mm.
I mean, unless there's a very specific circumstance and I can't sleep or, whatever. But otherwise, 12 hours is a minimum. Um, More isn't always better. So this is where and this is actually another con, but I'm throwing it in here so we understand. Just because 16 hours of digestive rest is great doesn't mean that 24 is better
Gotcha.
always. So I did that. I fasted too much, which brought my metabolism down. So I wasn't eating enough, just like any diet. I was restricting it too. So any diet you do, Ozempic drug, all of those things, when you're not eating and you're restricting your diet, you're eating less and less calories, could really slow down your metabolism unless you're getting the right nutrients and eating sufficient amounts of protein. So be aware to not restrict more and more and more because now you're slowing your metabolism down and now you're actually going to gain weight because your body is in starvation mode and is not utilizing any extra fuel. So more isn't always better.
Mm.
Uh, and then I said it, prioritize protein. So if you don't use it, you lose it. So make sure when you are fasting, when you break your fast, that you do it with a lot of protein. Protein is so important to hold on to those muscles because we need to use the muscles and we need to feed the muscles. And how do we feed the muscles? With protein. The protein synthesis that builds the muscles or repairs the muscles from breakdown. And if it's so important that we really eat it and fuel the body.
And if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, we've
Mhm.
given you a million
Yeah,
ways
a million ways, a million reasons why you need to eat protein.
and ideas how to get your protein.
Yes.
So
And these are things I will talk a lot about
yes.
in my membership. Anyway, and then when you're fasting, you need to move your body and use the muscles. Again, if you don't use it, you lose it. But it's also to signal to the body that no, we're not in start. We need to hold on to the muscles. We need to go into the storage units for more energy. And this body is not sitting still, or we're not in starvation mode. We're living our lives, and we're just going to go into the depots.
Yeah.
The fat depots. So yeah, lots and lots to uncover, but I do personally, I do like it a lot because I just think it's easy. It yeah, I like the health benefits. For me personally, not for fat loss or weight loss because yes, I lost weight, but I also screwed up my metabolism a little.
Mm.
So I gained weight. So but now I think I found a way to where it's not too much, not too little, but I get all the other benefits from it.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. that was a lot
That
today,
was
but it is a big subject. And again, we'll link to some great um, YouTubers that talk a lot about intermittent fasting and great ways to do it. And again, you can search online for all the research there is.
yeah. And any questions, let us know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and happy fasting.
Happy fasting. Yeah. And I'm cheering in water because I'm still in the fasted state.
I've stopped my fasting. I have cleaver.
Okay. All right. Well, until next time,
Cheers.
cheers.